That's where they reached Geula. That's Bekitza, short Nekuda, the way the Ramban puts it down. It's interesting, the Netziv, in his Akdama to the Chumash, he also has a short Akdama to the Chumash, a new book. It deserves an introduction, and he says that the Bahag is from the Goinim stuff. The Bahag has a name for all the Chumashim. Every Chumash has a name. Chumash Shemos he calls Sefer Tinyon, which means the second book. It says it's not Mustabe, he couldn't find a name for the Sefer Tinyon, Volume 2. And the truth is, the mocker for that is a Gemara Sefer on Lamed Vav and Beis on top of the Omed. Somewhere in Daf Yomi, you passed it lately, on the top of the Omed it says there, Gemara brings a pasuk and it says B'Sefer Sheni. Quotes a pasuk from Shemos and it says B'Sefer Sheni. So we find the Gemara referring to Shemos as Sefer Sheni. That's definitely where the Bahag got it from. Make his own thing, but the Kasha is still not answered. So the Netziv has an interesting type. He says it doesn't mean it's a second volume. It means it's a second to a first. Everything that happened, nothing happened here the first time. Everything happened already. Because B'Sefer Bereishis, the Ma'aser Avos Rabbanim. Everything that happened already. Avram went to Mitzrayim, Pari took Sarah. As I can say that we have to find the Ma'aser Avos Rabbanim. That's the Nekuda that he said. It doesn't mean that the second volume, the second book. It means everything that's in this Sefer is a chazara from something that happened before. It was already done in a certain way, prepared for us through the Avos. That's what it says. That's the Netziv's Hasbara, I'll call upon it. Good. The Gra Nades Eliyahu brings that the first pasuk of every Chumash, he calls it Reishi Safra, the beginning of the Chumashim. The first pasuk of a Chumash has a special madrega. He talks about Shari Bina, whatever. There's more Shari Bina, but it encompasses what's going to happen in this Chumash. That's what it says in the Gemara. You could find in the Reishi Safra, you could find the Nekudas of the Sefer. Could we do it in this Sefer? Maybe. We'll see. The first pasuk, that's the first pasuk. Balaturim mentions certain Rashi Tevis and Sefer Tevis that you could find in this pasuk. You don't have time to make a game out of it, so we'll have to go faster. The Eile Shmos B'nei Yisrael says in the Balaturim, the Eile Shmos, he doesn't say that. He says B'nei Yisrael Abo Mitzrayma. B'nei Yisrael Abo Mitzrayma is the Sefer Tevis Mila. That says in the Balaturim. The Sefer Tevis is Mila. Then he says Eis Yaakov Ish. The Sefer Tevis of Eis Yaakov Ish is Shabbos. Those are the two that the Balaturim says. And other Svarim say, Ve'ele Shmos B'nei Yisrael Haboim Ve'ele Shmos B'nei Yisrael Haboim is the Sefer Tevis Tehillim. Then if you go further, Mitzrayma, Eis, Yaakov, Ish, Uveisai, you have the Sefer Tevis of Tshuva. Right? So we did a little bit of Sefer Tevis in over here. Balaturim opened it up. Mila, Shabbos, Tehillim, and Tshuva. It's a lot, huh? in the first Rosh Tevis, or the first four words, is Shuvi. V'eila Shemos B'nei Yisrael is Shuvi. Chazal bring in Shir Hashirim, it says 4 times Shuvi towards the end of Shir Hashirim. Shuvi, Shuvi Hashulamis, Shuvi, Shuvi V'mechaz Aboch. Rashi already in Shir Hashirim brings from Chazal that the 4 times Shuvi is Keneged the Dalet Goliaths. It says 4 times Shuvi, and each one of the Goliaths is from Shatam and Shuvi. Either in each one they're tempted by the Ha'olam, Shute Shalmeka, Shuvi, the Ha'olam, offer Klal Yisrael's chashuva positions and so on to leave and to join them, or it's the Eibishter calling to Klal Yisrael Shuvi. Al Kol Panim, you have the Oisius of Shuvi over here as well. There are many, I don't want to go into Narichas. However, a little bit, if I want to, last week I ended up not learning Shacharis, and he must have been upset with me, so today we have to learn a little. There is, in Klal Yisrael, based on the Shloah Kodesh, but it's earlier yet, the Shloah Kodesh made a big piercing of it, that the weeks beginning from Shemos on are weeks of Tshuva. And they based it, maybe in Asmachta, maybe it's based on that, on a pasuk. Shuvu bonim shevavim. The bonim who went a little bit astray, shevav, do tshuva. Shuvu bonim, the Gemara. And Yuma brings this pasuk in Daf Pei Vav in the sugya of Shuva. Shuvu bonim shevavim. And shevavim is Rosh Tevis of the first 6 weeks. Shemos, Va'era, Boi, Shalach, Yisrei, Mishpatim, they make Shevavim. Shuvu Vanim Shevavim. Shnasa Ibor, really, the way, if you look into it, I'm not going to go into it now, we'll need an explanation, we'll wait till we get to the Chedesh Ibor for that. But why it's more in place in the year when there's an extra Chedesh, there's more place for the Indian of Shuva and Shevavim. But the special Zman, it's a Zman of Tshuva, Sheva. I want to be Megala, a little secret. That Shuvu, Vonim, Shevavim is exactly the gematria from Tafshi and Ayin Vav. Interesting gematria. I don't know if anybody else picked it up yet, but the violet's here. Shuvu, Vonim, Shevavim is Tafshi and Ayin Vav. In the stomach, face, if it means anything or not, but it can't harm to do Tshuva anytime. Shuva Vonim Shevavim. Just a few more words about that. We mentioned in the end of the pasuk, there's two Sefer Tevis that hit each other back to back, which are Tehillim and Tshuva. And in Klal Yisrael, those who try to do Tshuva a little bit in Shevavim, one of the Inyanim is it's not so in style in the Yeshiva Shevelta, is to say Tehillim. It's a good book. Tehillim is a Sefer of Tshuva. And one of the Mekayros for that is in the end of Shmuel, and it talks about David HaMelech, that's your line, it says, Hu HaGever Heikim Oil. Old, it says. He is the person, the Gemara says, what means Heikim Old? The Gemara, Heikim Ula Shal Tshuva. David HaMelech, he established the Oil of Tshuva. He was David El Tshuva. He taught the Derech HaTshuva. So, and then it says, right after that, it says Ne'im Zmiris Yisrael. And he is the one who made the Zmiris of Sefer Tehillim. So, the pasuk put together the two. Hu HaGever Heikim Ol, the Ula Shal Tshuva, Vaishtes goes together with Sefer Tehillim. Sefer Tehillim has a skula, besides that it discusses a lot of the words of Sefer Tehillim are in the honor of coming back to the Eibishter and longing to come back and so on and so on. But even those capitals that are not seemingly have a shayches, a special segula to help a person get closer to the Eibishter and to taka to do tshuva. So there's an Indian in these weeks, there's places in the Klal Yisrael where they have minyanim, they say Friday morning or Shabbos morning, Tillim Barab. But even without that, in your own four walls, it's also a good idea to get used to saying a little bit of Tillim until you get to actually enjoy it. It says another Knetch in the Svar that here it says the names of the Shvatim. Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, right? The way they're listed over here, the Yud Bey Shvatim that are listed over here, you have to count Yosef also, he's also mentioned, Yosef Hayib Mitzrayim. There's 49 letters. Actually, the Gemara mentions it in Sefer also, that the letters of the Shvatim are mem test. There's 49 letters in the names of the Shvatim, the way it is, not Menashe Ephraim. The way it is, it says in this Svarim, you know there's 49, they talk about mem test Shari Tumah. 49 Shari Tshuva as well, just like the Shari Tumah. The Shari Tshuva to get out is Mem Tes Shari Tshuva. And that's what these Oisias I mentioned right over here in the beginning of the Parsha of Geula. Golus and Geula. Let me explain it drop better. If we said that Shevavim is Miyuchet for Tshuva, the Parsha, the simple reason is because that's our own, every Nefesh B'Yisrael has his own Golus and its own Geula. Tshuva is Geula. The Gemara says that, not me. The Gemara in Yuma brings a pasuk that Tshuva Elai Ki Ga'alticha. Tshuva is Geula. And every person, in whatever degree it is, at least some part of him is still in Golus. And as much as you could take out even a little part could go out. If we'd be able to take an X-ray, you would see the black and the white, they'd have more sophisticated colors. But I'll call upon them, black and white is also good, and you could see which part of the nefesh is still in the dark, and get a little bit out, is a little bit of geula. That's geula b'chol yom chazal. So every day you could accomplish a little bit of geula. So that's why the Sefer of Golus and Geula is a time for a person to introspect his own nefesh, Golus and Geula, and try to get at least some of it out of its Golus. So the 49 letters of the Shvatim that I mentioned right over here that came into the Mitzarim of Golus, and then everybody else's mates are there to help him get out. The Shvatim went into the Golus, as the Chaim HaKadosh mentioned. They went, they came, they knew what they're going. They knew they're going into Golus. They were makabel on themselves to go into Golus to help Klal Yisrael and all the Deiros. Also says in Svarim that Bo'im, Ha-Bo'im Mitzrayimah, Bo'im is a remes to the Dalet Goliath, correct? The base is Babel, Aleph is Edom, the Yud is Yovan, the Mem is Moda. There's a remes to all the four Goliaths. Mitzrayim, Golus Mitzrayim, there's Mamish Medrashim in this week's Parsha, is a forerunner of all the Dalet Goliaths. Everything that happened in Mitzrayim happened was a preparation for something that's going to happen in the Goliaths as well. And the Shvatim came in, and every ois of the Shvatim is a koyach of tshuva. And I add a few more words. It struck me, if you say Tehillim, in the end of the Tehillim, and every Tehillim is printed, there's a Yiratzin, before and after. But some don't say it before, but after most people do say if you say. Anyway, so there it stresses more than normal. It says there that it should be Zeicha with saying this Tehillim to purify my nefesh, my ruach, and my neshama. It mentions bedafke the three chelkei ha'adam. A person has three components spiritually: a nefesh, a ruach, and a neshama. We'll talk about it soon, because it's important to know. Nefesh, ruach, neshama. So it struck me a little bit, vos epis, why do we mention nefesh, ruach, neshama over here? So I had an idea. I didn't see it say beferish any place yet, but at least mashmos, that actually Tehillim has today 150 kapitles. Right? That's how many chapters there are in Tehillim? 150. And these chapters, different than other chapters, were not made by the Goyim. These chapters are Jewish ones. I'll call upon see what tonight. Yeah, these chapters are Jewish ones. You see in the Gemara. So I'll call upon them, this Kuf Nun, this 150. It's not emes. In the Gemara, we see the Gemara mentions that there's 147 Mizmorei Tehillim Keneged Shneisov Shel Yaakov. Yaakov was Isaac in saying Tehillim. There's such a medrash in Parshas Vayetz. And Memela, it's Keneged his years. His years was not 150, it was 147. In the Gemara and Medrashim, it's mashma, they only had 147 kapitel. You could figure out from Gemara, it's not going into another certain kapitel what together. They had 147, but what happened here? Some Sefer in Parshas Vayigash, he has his arich, I can go into arichas now, that Yaakov Avinu's 147 years were divided into three parts, 3 times 49. 3 times 49 is 147. Yeah? So, it's mistaber to say that the 3 chelkei that the Tillim is also divided into 3 49s, and it's Keneged Nefesh Ruach and Neshama. It's like 147 kapitlach of Tehillim, Keneged the Nefesh. In the Nefesh there's 49 parts. Sha'orim, not just in the Neshama, in the Nefesh and the Ruach. Each one has 49 Sha'orim. And David HaMelech was mitayah all the Sha'orim. So very good. So here is 49 Oisias. Yeah? In the Gemara, in the Sefer Sefer, the Gemara says that on the ephod that the Kohen Gadol wore, it's also listed on one stone 6 shvatim, on the other stone 6 shvatim. The Gemara says each stone had 25 Oisias. So it was 50 Oisias. The Gemara asks a kasha, it's not 50. It's only 49. Where do you have 50? Gemara said it said 1 test, 2 tests, with the Rambam passing like that it said Yehoisef. With an extra hay, like it says in Tehillim, the Eibishter added, in the schus of Yosef's running away from doing an Aveira, the Eibishter added a Eis to his name. So now we have 50 Eises. That's the Gemara's test. So from 49 Eises, the Taka became 50. Right? The Schorr says in Ades Eliyahu that we know there's 50 Sharei Bina. One of them is above our Hasaga. Even Moshe Rabbeinu wasn't masik, the whole 50 is Sharei Bina. So the Schorr says that's Yosef. In the Schar of Tshuva, he was zeicha to the Tshuva takes you to the Shar Chamisha, higher than the Seder. When would Kal Yisrael zeicha to Shar Chamishim, to Shtikel Shar Chamishim, by Matan Torah? It's getting too long, my Shtikel. Anoich Hashem, I didn't expect like it. Anoich Hashem lekecha she'tzisicha me'eretz Mitzrayim. The Goyen says, B'Shem Azayah, it says 50 times it sees Mitzrayim in the Torah. Exactly. And the Goyen says, which it sees Mitzrayim in the Torah took us out from the, has the koyach to pull out from the Shar Chamishim. The one that we heard from the Eibishter. Only the Eibishter could do that. It's a sicha, the Gemara says, doesn't mean I have taken you out. I'm taking you out. The Anoichi takes you out of Mitzrayim. And in fact, it's Fasemis in this week's Parasha. He says, Moshe Rabbeinu said, Mi Anoichi, to take out Eden from Mitzrayim. So Fasemis says, they're going to fall. If you don't be careful, they're going to fall in the Shar Chamishim. Me is not for me. Me is for Anoichi. Me Anoichi. For the me, for the Shar Chamishim, you need Anoichi. That's how he types it. So it's like the Goy. There are only Anoichi can take out from the Shar Chamishim. So by Matan Torah, they were zeicha to the Shar Chamishim, to a certain degree. That's why it says in the Pasuk that Lasad Lavai, as we see, even though we are in the 50 states of Torah, yeah, so still Mashiach is taking his time. Why is he taking his time? He's from Canada. Yeah, so why is Mashiach taking his time? So it says in the Swarm, the Nefesh HaChaim, because after Matan Torah we can get out of Shar Chamishim too. The whole Sakona Mitzrayim that they shouldn't fall into Shar Chamishim was before Matan Torah, the Ohr Somayach said. The Ohr Chaim HaKadosh said. After Matan Torah, even if we'll fall Chalil in Shar Chamishim, we have already the Anoichi. So there's no rush. Rachmana litzlan, there's no rush. Yeah. Al kol panim, Once we have Matan Torah, so then we were Zeicha to Shach HaMishim, so we have already 50th Eis on the Ephod. So then it became like a 50 kapitel telling for each one. That's when the switch became. Before we were Zeicha to Shach HaMishim, it's 49 times 3. After we were Zeicha to Shach HaMishim, it's 50 times 3. The Mashal Tzisi, Lahagid. That is like 50. If you look a little bit, it's not as good as I would like it to be. Can't make these things to order. But if you look through Tillim, you'll see that in the first 50 kapitlach, especially near the beginning, there's a much more talk about nafshi, about the nefesh. Kapitel Nun Aleph, you'll look, that's the famous Mizmah HaTshuva. That in there, one of the famous psukim is Leiv Teva Elikim V'Ruach Nachar Chadish V'Kirbi. And it says 3 times Ruach in that kapitel. And in the beginning of Kuf Aleph, right after the 100th, there it says Bochi Nafshi, and the Gemara says Hani Hei Bochi Nafshi Keneged Mi is Keneged Ben Neshama. Go upon him. I look through Tillim a little bit while I say Tillim a little. There is something there that looks like there is a division. But I'll call upon him if there is an exact division or not, but the idea that that is a 3 times 49 or 3 times 50 makes sense. I want to say one more thing, and then we'll see Sfas Emes. I hope what I said is a shtick Sfas Emes.
I have a question. Yeah. What are the other 3 kapitel? If there's 147, where do the other 3 come from?
No, because there used to be 2 that were together. I can answer that, but not now. The Gemara, there's a Gemara in the beginning of Brachas. Oh. There's certain ones that were once together, and now they're split. Oh. The Gemara really says that. Okay. The Medrash begins the Parsha, the Chumash, and it says, it's a Gemara Brachas, the Medrash says there's 3 things that are only niknas al yedei Yisurim. One can only acquire them through Yisurim. Yeah? Affliction, painful Sachen. What are they? Torah. And what was the Yisurim that we went through to get to Torah? Golus Mitzrayim. The second one, Chazal say, is Eretz Yisrael. What were the Yisurim we went through to gain Eretz Yisrael? The Midbar. The Midbar wasn't easy. Kashi Yasaish, a lot of Psukim was Yisurim. It wasn't an easy journey. And the third is Olam Haba. And for that, we have our long Golus. They say even that's why it's a long one, because we're waiting for Yom Shekuli Oroch. But the Maisa, our Golus is a preparation for Kinyan of Olam Haba. There's 3 things that one is kind of Yidei Yisurim. So let's see the first piece of Sfas Emes, and maybe I will bring it back into what we said. I made Sfas Emes so many, I thought we were going to be here a whole night. I'm sorry. Could do that. Okay. The Medrash. Gimel Matanis Tevis, the first piece, yeah? The Gimel Matanis Tevis, nothing about Yisrael. Torah, that's Yisrael. The Chaye Olam Haba. The Kulam al Yedei Yisurim. Zoktes Vasamas. Heim. These 3 represent 3 different areas. Chemes Maisa, Diba, Umachshava. We said before, and this is important to hear if somebody wants to see it inside the Nefesh HaChaim, the last piece in Shar Aleph, puts it down very systematically, but it's a pashut thing. We said a person has 3 halakim in his spiritual building. There's a Nefesh, is the lower part, then there's Ruach, and then there is Neshama. Those are the 3 magic letters that you see often, Nun, Reish, Nun, and they can go both ways, right? Where do they function through? Where are they based? Where do they live? The nefesh is in the kaved, or in the blood. That's where the nefesh is. Hadam hu nefesh, nefesh HaChaim brings. The nefesh is in the kaved, the liver, the blood. That's where the nefesh functions through. What's the nefesh's function? Maisa. Actions. HaNefesh asher ta'aseh. It's a posik. Nefesh, Maisim refers to nefesh. Okay. The ruach is in the leiv. The leiv, that's where the ruach is. In the physical sense and in the ruchniistic sense. Leiv ta, broli elikim, v'ruach noch, echadish b'kebi. Leiv and ruach go together. The ruach is in the leiv, and what's its function? Dibur. Ruchi asher alecha udvori asher samti beficha. There's other psukim. Ruach memalala, the Targum. So ruach is dibur. And the function of the moyach and the neshama function through the moyach. Those who say l'shem yichud, when they put on the tefillin, it says neshama shebe moichi, the lashon of the Torah. The neshama functions through the moyach, and its function is machshava. So you'll see, just like you see words in Svarim, nun reish nun, you should see words mem daled mem, which is machshava, diva, and maisa, or the other way around.
Regarding the word lave, right?
Just give me one more minute, if you don't mind. Just something to remember, that the Sefer Tevis of Moyach, Leiv Kovet, is the end letter of Moyach is a Ches, the end letter of Leiv is a Vez, and the end letter of Kovet is a Dalet, which makes Chochma, Bina, and Das. So it's Chochma is from the Moyach, Bina is from the Leiv, and Das is from the Kovet. Yes, now I'll take your question, sorry. Who was it?
Yeah, regarding lave, does lave make reference to the intellectual function in this context? Because often I see in other
It's a big question always when it says lave, if it means the lave, or it means lave sometimes could mean the mayach also. True. But in this context, it's the lave mamish. The ruach and the dibur, the ik is the keich dibur. So that back to the Sfas Emes, I just wanted this background to chap what he wants over here. So the Sfas Emes says, when we're talking about three parts of Nikna B'Yisurim, and we said Eretz Yisrael, Olam Haba, and Torah. So we all know ourselves, Torah, Olam Haba is Machshava. So Ruchnistic world, that's Machshava. Eretz Yisrael is the Olam HaMaisa, Mitzvahs HaTluyos Ba'aretz. That's Eretz Yisrael. And Torah is Dibur. That's what he says over here. So in other words, it's a deeper understanding. It's not just these three things. Bechlal, every person, whatever it's nefesh, ruach, and neshama, to be kind of them properly, it takes Yisurim. We'll talk about that soon. So that's what he says over here. Torah et Yisrael v'chayel mabah kulam agdei Yisurim heim bechinas ma'aseh di b'machshav shem gimel madregos u'lechol echad yesh hester. Each one of these has something, a blockage we'll call it. Something is blocking. You're not born with a prayer that the nefesh ruach neshama are just functioning properly in a spiritual way. You have to fight for it. You have to work on it. There's a blockage. It needs a tikkun, and those are yisurim. It's not easy. It's painful tikkunim. Ki Eretz Yisrael. Now he explains himself why it is that way. We explained it ourselves a little bit. Ki Eretz Yisrael, Beis Hamikdash, Kabbanis, that's Asiyah. Torah is Dibur, and Olam Haba, that's Machshava. Right? Now, if we want, and why shouldn't we want, we could take the three main things that we mentioned in the beginning of the parasha. In the first pasuk, we said we have Shabbos, right? We have Tilim, and we had Mila. Now Shabbos is Me'en Olam Haba. Shabbos is Olam Haba. Shabbos is Machshava. Shama Yisera. Shabbos is Neshama. Yomed Nishmasa, Chazal call it, a day of Neshama. Shabbos is Neshama. Tehillim is Dibur. Tehillim is Dibur, and Mila is the Tikkun HaGuf. That's Maisa. So it fits in. And then it could be, that's why it's in the beginning of the Sefer. Because the Ikka Sefer is these three things, Monsey and Sefer, all three areas went into Golos. And in all three areas, we'll have to work and find the goal of them. But it's there. Right? So it's not stam that it's in the beginning of the Sefer, there's something to it. V'gimel elu koilim kol ha'adam. These three encompass the whole person. Uv'mitzrayim ha'yakol kol ha'stories. In Mitzrayim, it encompassed all the astoras, the nefesh, the ruach, the neshama, the diba, mice, everything was blocked. A terrible golus. V'lachein ksiv gimel l'shonis. This is a very special. Maral touches on this as well. It says later, Vatal Shavosam Elo Elikim in Ho'aveda, when things got real rough. What does it say? Vayar Elikim es b'nei Yisrael. There's three Lashonis. Vayar, and it says, first it says Vatal Shavosam Elo Elikim. That's Shmiya. The Eibishter heard what they were, their tefillas. Then it says Vayar, and it says Vayeda. Heim Gimel B'chinas. Shmiya is Diba. He heard their Diba. V'riya is b'maisa. He saw their maisa. And Yediyah is machshava. He knew their machshavas. So the Geula began. That's the beginning of the process of Geula that is already connecting. These three are connecting with Hashem Yisrael. V'chein ksiv, it says even in a better pasuk. V'isi es oni ami. What did he see? He saw the avodah b'maisa. He saw their work. He saw their servitude. Es tzakosem shomati, and then it says yodati es machayvav. The Maral also touches upon this. That's b'machshava. So you see, Claude, that those are the three halakim that went into Golus, and then they started the Geula when the Eibishter connected to it. V'heim gimel b'chinas ha'oveis. Those are the three b'china of the oveis: Riya, Shmiya, and Yediyah. Without going into an arichas, Riya is Avraham. Besides the point that you have the word Ra'ah in Avraham's name, but you also have psukim. Avraham he was able to see. Yera Elav Hashem. If you need more than that, Yitzchak is Shmiya. That's brought in Svarim. Midas Hadin, Midas Hagvura is Shmiya. Hashem Shamati Shimacho Yoreisi is the lashon of the pasuk. Yira comes from Shmiya. That's why, interesting, the Svarim say, interesting zach. Trei kol iloi mishtami. Right? You can't have two kurdish at one time. So, because Shmiya is din is tzimtzum. Ri is the other way around. You can't see one thing at one time. You can see one snowflake at a time, you can't. Because Chesed is mispashit. Shmiya is mitzamtzim. I'll call upon them, those are the three. Ve'ele gimel ha'avodah yistrichen lasik be'em tamid. This is a big job he made over here. That a person has to work constantly in these three things. The saking, that's what a person is. You can't just work on one area. He has to be misaking his maisim. He has to work to better his maisim. He has to be careful in the dibur. And he has to watch his machshava. Some are harder, some are easy, and he must have to do shmaya. But at least it has to be on his conscience that that's a person, that's a yid, not just ma'asim, not just diba. All three areas, and every yid has his golas and his geula. I'm going to turn over the page. Just I want to see the beginning of a piece. I'm going to come back.
Right.
Hashem. Yes, this is getting to the.
They're seeing Avram, Shmiya, Yitzchak, and
Yaakov is Yediyah. Noichi lo yodot. Right? There's other psukim as well. I'm going to read. There's a piece here in the second column on the other side, but you'll be with me if I read a little quicker than I should. I'm going to try to. I want to bring out just one point. He writes in the beginning that he writes much shorter than normal because he's reviewing things that he wrote already in the other passage, so he's just putting together. The Medrash begins with a pasuk. Oy Havoi, a famous pasuk. The first part was translated into English, and the Goyim use it a lot. They use it, but they don't do it. It says in the pasuk, Chaysech Shiftei Sainei Benoi. One who holds back the rod, hates his child, right? Not like today's child abuse system. Chayser shivtei soinei b'noi, v'oy havoi shecharoi musa. One who loves his child, he gives him musa. Rab Shamsa Farleir's teaches the word shicharoi, partially means he gives him a matanash of musa, sends him musa. He says it's from the word shacha. The other one starts choysech. Choysech is the same ACS as choysech, typical of Rab Shamsa Farleir. Choysech shifta, he holds back his shame, he leaves his son in the dark. V'oy havoi shicharoi musa, from the word shacha. He sees the light through the musa, he shows him the light. That's his tafkid. And the Sasem stage is similar. Shicharoi musa, if you really love your child, you give him musa in the early stage of life, in the shacha. Don't wait till later. In the early stage of life. The Eibishter did a murder kechesed. If the Eibishter would have waited for us to go into Golus, Mitzrayim, we'd never get out of there. The Eibishter took the best, the Shvatim, together with Yankee Avinu, but the Shvatim, the Shivim Nefesh, they went into Mitzrayim. They were able to pave the way for us. So he did the Musa that he had to bring Klal Yisrael into Mitzrayim in the first stage of Klal Yisrael. That was a Chesed Hashem. The Ikar Matter says when we start the Pasha, we start to get scared. We should realize the whole Golas was only because Klal Yisrael needed it, and that's what Klal Yisrael needed. I'm not going to go into it. As it says in the Arizal, without understanding the Inyan of the Shemos and Gilgulim, you really can't understand the Chlal, what it was all about. But we had to go through a Tziruf and a Zichuch in order to come to Matan Torah. It's Oyavai. Right in the beginning we have to know that. Then it says, Hainu Mamish B'chol Yom. You have to know that every morning we get this Musa. This is very important to know, because sometimes we think something is wrong with us. There's nothing wrong with us. If we find it hard to get out of bed in the morning. Sometimes our machshavas are not so clear. We don't wake up in the morning, even though we say Moidani, we don't always feel the Lefanecha, we don't always feel every word that we're saying. And it's an ishtadai pasha. It takes time. So we're halfway, at least there, it takes time. Zoktes Vasemes, because every morning there's a battle. Every morning there's Yisurim. There are Yisurim. We're talking about Ruchnistik Yisurim. It's not Geschmack. We'd love to jump out of bed like the Master Shashiv and not everybody could do it. Geht nicht. So he says, why not? Because every morning we have this Musa. Hainu mamish b'chol yoim, k'may shekosav v'sechachti la b'koram. My Musa comes every morning. U'k'may she'omer Chazal. It's a Chazal. This Chazal wasn't just said for you, it was said for Abai and for Rav and for Rav Papa. Yitzrei shel Adam is gabe olav b'chol yom. It's a Chazal. Every morning there's a Yetzirah and he's strong as could be. What are they supposed to do it for? Leave me alone a little bit. Ne? B'chol zeh l'toiva. Sha'yidei ha'yigiyah sheyesh bereishisai. That difficult time that we have, Mekabel achekach ha'toiva b'shleimus. Little by little, it brings us to a toiva. We get to a davening. We get to a bar sha'oma. We start to be maked as a boirei. Then we go to later. We go to Yitzias Mitzrayim and to Oz Yosher. You go through the whole thing. In other words, there's a vote. It's not easy, but for every milchama kasha yanu oisai came yirbe v'chen yifreitz. For every inu that we go through, Rashi says the Eibishter pays us back. You might not see it always right away, but everything is paid back. That's the nekuda. V'zeh shekosav ve'ele shmois loidia chibosan b'shas heridu la'hagolos loidia ki loi mitzat shiflos hoya. Chas v'shon. It's not because we were low, we fell. Rak v'oya v'shichem musa v'ala koil kibloscha. Every prat to prat we were paid back for. That's the nekuda to know. I can't read the whole piece now, but that's the nekuda. If you would skip it and know how to, the first, if you put your finger down, and the first word on the line is going to be Yisurim, but it won't be painful. Got your finger down, get till Yisurim. Yeah, and then a few words after, because it's V'zeh shekosav. It says later in the Pasha beautiful words. Labas Eish. Hashem revealed himself to Moshe Rabbeinu first. Labas Eish, there was a malach and a flame of fire, and from within a sneh, a thorn bush. What's the sneh? What's the fire? The sneh is sticky. He's learning the sneh of the golus, and it's dark and it's sticky. Inside is really a labas eish. They're not ready yet, but inside is a labas eish. And later he says the same thing is true. Now if you go on the other side, from the bottom, start from the bottom, not from the top, till you get to the word lono on the end of the line. And I want to just read those few words. It's a bit of chizik. Ukemoi kein yesh lonu lekavois begolos hama hazeh. We have to hope that in our bitter golos, shloiliyas noyash chas v'shalom, we shouldn't give up. B'roi shifloseinu, we see how low we fell. Milaba u'milagav, from within and from outside. He means by us, and of course by the Jews that don't even know what they are, who they are. How are they going to be able to be Mekabel? How is it going to be Mashiach? How is it going to be a Gula? What's going to happen to everybody? So what does he say? She'en muchanim l'shum madrega ktana shel madrega is aviseinu. We're not ready for any big madregas. Loyma, so we might think, hey, nucha lavid bebeis hamigdash, liris pnei Hashem, shalish pamim b'shana. How are we going to get there? It doesn't work that way. Ki k'sheyiten Hashem yizbach v'yigalenu, when there's going to be a gula, our pnimis is going to open up. In every yid there's a labas eish. Just, some have more sneh, some have less sneh, but there's a sneh. And memele, we can't get to any of these madregas. But once the Eibush will open up, the pnimius within every Jew. Yis'era pnimius sheyesh bono liyas nepochim kerega lalis l'madregas al yonis kibishonim hakadmoniyis kenal. And he gives us a bracha, Hashem Yisbach, Yemai, Gula, Senim, Meher, Yemen. It's a question that bothers a lot of people. Leave you there, Moaz Nasher, everybody knows where he stands. Tomorrow, Mashiach is going to come, what's going to be with me? Shama Shanasat to beat the Hoirahi, that's part of the Chizik of Moedani. Inside is a Neshama, it's a Labas Eish. As much as there's snare, but once the Eish will remove the snare, the Labas Eish will come through. And we'll be able to pick ourselves up. That's one. Last week we davened married together. We'll do that again. I want to learn one more piece, an important piece. They're all important. And the third piece, the second piece, right? The second piece. On the where we up to? On the first column, the second piece. Rashi. Rashi says, "Ochei noida hadova." Moshe Rabbeinu saw that they know what he did. They talked about it. Hal hogeni atoim, you're going to kill me too. Oh, Moshe Rabbeinu said, so Rashi says, Pshutay kemashmoy. Pashup Pshat is, people know about it, I better run away. And Rashi says, there's a tifer Pshat. I was tamani, I was wondering, mipnei man ishtaninu mi ayin umois. Why were we different than all the ayin umois? Why are we in Golos? Now I know the answer, because there's Lashon Hara. That's what Rashi says. Before I go weiter, I think everybody will be made. It's a little funny. Why did Rashi say ayin umas? Why do I have to know that there's 70 umas? He doesn't mean the Lashon. If you look at Rashi says, Loma nishtaninu me ayin umas. Rashi should have said, Loma nishtaninu me kol umas. Well, you got to know how many umas there were. So the Maral in Gur Aryeh, he says a murder kazach. And the Chayat, Nikol and Devayamas, where the Rashi say ayin. He says that, oh, this you can say over by the Shabbos table. It's an easy one. Ochein has Aleph and it has Cain. Cain is the gematria of 70. So the Aleph is never supposed to be. Aleph is the Klal Yisrael. Klal Yisrael are not supposed to be together with the Cain. The Umasayim can talk Lashon Hara. Doesn't bother. Nothing will happen. But if the Aleph joins the Cain, then it's late. That's what the Maharal says that Rashi meant that. Rashi says Shivim. What did Rashi bring the Shivim for? The Maharal says that Rashi's meant to put it into the word. Ochei noida hadova. The Aleph, he uses the Lashon, Aleph is the Oisi, is Pella. The Aleph has to be separate from the rest, and to be able to hold the Pella, hold the secret, that's the whole way. But Al Kapana, that's not. Now there's an important Nekuda which we all have to learn, that how important Shmiras HaLashon is. We didn't know it's so important. All of a sudden he says, V'achikach b'posik, v'chi oitzi, all of a sudden Moshe Rabbeinu said, Mamish the other way, Maschus yesh li Yisrael. Before he didn't know what they're doing in Golas. And now, once he knew he turned 100 degrees and he says, I don't know what's supposed to have to God. What happened? So he says something which comes from the Chovos HaLevavos. I believe nobody knows where the Chovos HaLevavos got it from, unless he saw the books in heaven. Because otherwise, there's no Gemara that says that. The Chovos HaLevavos says, it's Yadua, and it says inside, that if a person speaks Lashon Hara on somebody else, then the Eibusha transfers all the Schusim. All your Schusim go to him. And all his Averis, there's a switch, boom. It's a pellet from it's a pellet. It's very scary. You need a Chazal for that. Where did the Chovos HaLevavos get it from? There's no Klar Mokkah. We don't have a Mokkah where he got it from. As I said, unless he saw the books. But Lemaisa, here, he's basing on that Chovos HaLevavos. Other places they bring the Chovos HaLevavos. That's shot. Once you know Lashon Hara, there's no more Schusim. Schusim are gone. So once you knew that, he had no. He went like a reverse his whole thing. Lohidia eich shema'avdim chas v'sholom kol ha-schusim al yedei Lashon Hara ma'asher mitchila tom in the beginning he was wondering lama nishtana b'nei Yisrael mikulam liyis begolas v'achar kach omer ma'aschus. And the Eibishter answered, he says very nice, when you're going to be Oitziach or Tavdon, there's going to be a Matan Torah. And it says in the Gemara Eichin, Mata kanto shobal Lashon Hara, what's the Eitzah, how do you do tshuva, Yasik the Torah. So that was the answer. They talk about Pegim in the Lashon, but they're going to be Mekabel Torah, and they'll be Mesakin it with Talmud Torah. Achekach Omer Maschutz, Vatikon al Yedei HaTorah, K'moshe Kosev B'Yitziach HaSa'om, Ki Hakel Toli B'Diba Shel Ha'odom. The whole Chavetz Chaim says here in a line, Ki Hakel Toli B'Diba Shel Ha'odom, K'moshe Kosev the Pasuk Moves V'Chayim B'Yad HaLoshrei. It's all Toli in that. Right, and this Lashon Hara that's over here is that we're talking about is a worse one. Not I'm talking about Lashon Hara Malshinos. I don't want to go into a long shmuz, but Vaystois and the Chavetz Chaim brings from the Goyim, Malshinos is worse than anything. To what's the right word? No, to be an informer, to tell on people. Sometimes it's an isoin. You can get money for it. You get this, but on the it's worse than Lashon Hara. It's mamish the Chavetz Chaim brings from the Goyim that the Goyim was once going in a wagon to grow. The Vilna Goyim was once in a wagon and there was a driver, a Pashut person who was driving drove a wagon, and by mistake the driver fell asleep and he went with his wagon onto somebody's cornfield, and the person came. The balabas was a goy, and he came to hit the gra. He didn't see it. The gra was inside the wagon. He wasn't the driver, back off on it. So the gra said he had on his sign to say, "It's not me, it's the driver." And he held himself back. And he said, if he would have said, "It's not me, it's the driver," he would have lost his whole Elam. See, Chavetz Chaim in the Sefer brings it from the gra. Ad kedei kach. This is a very, maybe he had a right to, he's getting touched, he's getting hit. Right? It's a little bit of an area that needs chizuk. One more little piece, yeah? A little piece, when we're going to stop at 10 o'clock, Be'ezer Hashem. Yeah? On the other side, the first piece. In the end of the Pasha, mamish in the end of Pasha Shemos, Pari got very bad. So there's no time over here. I take a set and I can't stop, so I have to make it time. But you look over here in the first new piece in the second column, he says a beautiful word. He says, why did the Shibud get worse? Why did Pari keep on getting worse? Moshe and Aaron were there. He should have made some kind of impression. He won't be 100% better, but he should get better, not worse. So he says very stark. He says, it's Yadua that the main goal is to take out Mitzaitis HaKedusha, sparks of Kedusha, that's enough for now, that are amongst the Goyim. The Kais of the goal is to pick up all those sparks of Kedusha. That's what they were in Golos for. And they keep on drawing them out. So Mamela, the more Toiv goes out, then it's more Ra. So that's why he says, the more they dealt with Pari, Moshe Aaron came to Pari. When they came, they took out Nitzitzes. Reuven and Shimon could do it, Moshe Aaron, they slept out Nitzitzes. So Mamela, Pari was emptied from good. He was emptied from good, so he got worse. And I was there till the end. And he says the same thing. He ends off, that's why in our goals, time's getting harder, because the closer we get to Mashiach, we took out almost all the time that there's not Umas. So it's a very innovative mahalach in understanding that the closer we get to Mashiach, the more time we took out. The time went out, so the Ra's plotzing is full of Ra. That's what he said in that piece. I had stark Hanor from the piece. Here in the end of Mara also. Yeah. I just I know it's not his own, but it's important to hear it that way. Good.
Does that mean we have to leave some in?
That's one thing. I don't want to leave everything in, but let's 2 more minutes. I said 10 o'clock. Lo yisei sifon afterwards, okay? Lo yisei sifon. In the end of the parasha, Pari says, Lo yisei sifon lasis tevin. Don't give any more straw. All right? No more straw. They have to go collect the straw themselves. So Lo yisei sifon, if you see the way it's spelled, Lo yisei sifon is spelled in the pasuk with the aleph. Lo yisei sifon lasis. So what is that? Why is there aleph there? Lo yisei sifon means you shouldn't continue. So it shouldn't have an aleph. An aleph means asifa, not to continue. So really, I'll be poshta pshat. It means because they used to collect the straw and bring it to them. So lo yisei sifon has both. Don't continue to collect the straw and give it to them. That's Mustamar pi pshat. But he says, and others say, that Chazal say that why did Paris say no more straw? What was his real kavanah? His real kavanah was because Moshe Rabbeinu instituted, and he convinced Pari it's good for the Jews, they're working very hard, get them off one day, and he made sure they should get off Shabbos. And Shabbos was a day of chizik. They used to get together and they would mechazik each other. Pari wanted to chap that this chizik is not so good. So he made it harder. They won't have they have to have a 7-day week. There's no way out. So but Ike wanted to take away the Shabbos. So that's why the Swarm say that's the Lo yisei sifon. That's why there's an aleph over there, because what he really wanted was to stop the sifes of Shabbos. The chizik that Yidden got from getting together on Shabbos, that's what he wanted. And then the Sasemis in the end of the piece he says, it's not so far-fetched to teach that Teven also means Tevuna. Shabbos gives Bina. They say Sifon Lasis Teven, besides the Pashat, the straw that's in the Teven, there's also Bina over there. Don't give them straw, and maybe they won't have a Shabbos and they won't have a Bina. There's much more in this piece of Sasemis, but right now we have to say good Shabbos.